Yes, this afternoon's session is all about the potential impacts of this discussion forum and the work of Animal Welfare Foundation over the years, actually introduced because of your comments, really, from previous discussion fora, to try and give feedback to you as to what's happened with the issues that you've raised. If we go back on a little bit of history, when I took over the chair of the foundation in 2006, there was quite a lot of focus on what the role of the charity was and whether it should be involved much more with policy formation within the BVA, despite the fact there was the Animal Welfare Committee at the time, chaired by, or Ethics Committee, sorry, chaired at the time by Lord Salisbury, which actually had a few meetings but wasn't as heavily involved with policy formulation as some requests and approaches to BVA suggested it should have been. And there was some focus within AWF as well that maybe AWF should be taking more of that role up, but in fact we are a charity. And the constitution of the AWF doesn't really permit us to act in such a political way. And several discussions, one of which was at this forum when it was held on a much smaller basis, actually exposed that fact that it could be in quite a difficult position if the trustee charities adopted a particular route forward that was not necessarily in line with BVA policy. It could get quite difficult, which of course upheld the reasons why the charities' objects were created as they were in the first place, to be a charity. And that resulted in the formalisation of the Ethics and Welfare Group now being part of the committee structure within the BVA, and that provided a tremendous amount of clarity, not only for the policy formulation side for BVA, but also for the work of the charity and where we should concentrate our efforts. And to remind us of what those efforts surround, it's all about our mission to improve the welfare of all animals through science, education and debate. So how do we do it? Well, the education aspect is covered off, I suppose, with the lectures that we give to the various veterinary schools on animal welfare, but also there's the publications aspect with the various leaflets and the website information that we create and other initiatives. The science aspect is covered off by the research grants that many of which you'll be aware of, and I suppose in modern parlance with evidence-based medicine, I suppose, it's the filling in the evidence gaps that are often brought towards us with respect to welfare matters out there. And we've, in recent years as well, reviewed our grant application process and created a formal grants committee, which draws within it as well, with each of the grant applications that we receive. We try and draw into it independent review of each of the grants as well, so we're trying to make sure we get the relevant expertise for each subject to give us as robust a review process as we possibly can do, so that the trustees at the end of the day are basing their information from which to fund on the best possible information that we have. The third role of debate, well, that's what today's about, effectively. And this forum has grown from what was a relatively modest representatives' day, from the old divisional reps' day, held within the BVA building, to what we have in front of us now. A much bigger audience with reps from across the whole welfare spectrum of many disciplines, vets and non-vets, all contributing to the debate. And of course, that mix lends for some productive discussion of topical and sometimes, yes, particularly contentious issues. It is worth remembering, however, this is not a policy forming day. It can't be. It's not just BVA members in the room. It's not actually formally part of BVA policy forming process. What it is a policy informing day. The discussion that happens here gives us a flavour and a gauge of opinion of a lot of those topical issues of the day. And that's how it should be seen as such, and any sort of feeling of the room that's ever gauged is just that. It's a feeling of the room that can give some traction, if you will, to further development within BVA process. And we do that by capturing the comments with the work of the staff of BVA that are in the room today. For a BVA policy opposition statement to be forthcoming on these subjects on behalf of members, the due process must be entered into. And that's where the committee system of BVA comes into its own. And predominantly in this case, it's the Ethics and Welfare Group that I mentioned earlier, but also sometimes it might be the Veterinary Policy Group that are brought on board, even a mixture of the two. where all the things that are captured today, the key messages and the themes, are taken away and discussed. And they may be discussed internally within those groups, and draft position statements brought forward, or indeed working groups specifically might be set up, or it might be done on a wider basis with further coordination between all the groups. Either way, eventually things go to Council, which is the ultimate decision maker, and indeed Council sees much of the record of discussion in the committee minutes through the process, and it is I wouldn't say it's a very regular, but it's certainly an experience that does happen for chairmen of those groups, that Council throws things back at the committees to reconsider if Council thinks that maybe a little bit more direction is needed in a certain area. But once Council has actually accepted the view and position that one of the committees, particularly EWG in this case I've mentioned, has put forward, then that becomes BVA policy, and that is what's taken forward and promoted and represented on behalf of the membership. And it's my pleasure this afternoon to guide you through till tea time, when we have 4 such subjects that have raised eyebrows at times and certainly raised an awful lot of concern with respect to their founding subjects over recent years. And we have excellent speakers, all of which are experts in their field, to present them. There'll be 10 minutes for each presenter, and then I'm going to allow 10 minutes questioning of each presenter on each of the subjects, so a slightly different and shorter timescale to the format from this morning.